Once you've exported your data, you may click on it and it may open up right away as a Google Sheet. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't open up as a Google Sheet, then you need to copy some data and paste it into a Google Sheet. We're going to assume that my data would not open up in a sheet. Therefore, I'm going to copy it and produce a new Google Sheet. There's my data. It's not a Google Sheet. Notice I've got 4 columns here: date and time, time, position, velocity, and acceleration. I only want the middle 3. Time, position, and velocity. So I'm going to highlight those 3 columns, highlight the data in those 3 columns, and then I'm going to click Control-C on my keyboard. That's going to copy that data. Now, in my folder, I'm going to produce a new Google Sheet. It's going to be blank. Now I'm going to left click in the top left-hand corner, the first cell, and I'm going to go Control-V. That's going to paste all of that data into my Google Sheet. There it is. Now, lots of this data is extraneous. Lots of this data I'm not going to use. I don't know what it is that I'm going to use yet, but we'll worry about that after I've plotted some graphs. First thing I'm going to do here, though, before I do that, is actually create a couple new columns or a couple new tables. Not because you need to put those other tables in your lab. The table that you see here now, once I've got it tidied up and the extraneous data deleted, is good enough. The other tables are just going to help me perform, they're going to help me draw or plot my graphs a little bit easier. So let's highlight these 2 columns by clicking on A and B, Control-C, and then Control-V to paste over here. Let's do the same thing with time and velocity. Click on the heading, Control-C, go over here, Control-V. Now, this is what I'm going to put into Google Docs for my lab write-up, but these are what I'm going to use to plot my graphs. Same data, it's just separated. It makes it easier to plot the graphs. Now, let's plot my position time graph. Highlight all of this data. Then you're going to insert a chart. Now, I don't want a bar graph, a column chart. I want to scroll down here and pick a scatter plot. You can see the data is all over the place. It looks like my data in that range of 1 to 1.5 seconds is good. So I'm going to use that and delete everything else. Let's move it over here. Let's delete up to about 1 second and see what happens here. If I click on those rows and highlight up to 1 second, and then right-click it, delete those rows, my graph looks better. But you can still see that there's extraneous data here from about 1.5 seconds on. So now what I'm going to do is click on row 11, which is the 1.5 second time, and highlight the rest of my rows. Now I'm going to right-click those, delete those rows. And now I've got a much better looking graph. My title is correct, my axes are correct, and if you look carefully, this is a line that is curving, as it should be. As the ball was falling, it was accelerating. It was a curved line. But it's not curving upwards because it's a negative velocity. It's moving downwards. If I go to edit this chart here, and I customize it, series, add trend line down here, it's going to automatically add a linear trend line. That looks good. But what looks better? If we check type and click polynomial, that looks better, as it should. The equation that describes the motion of this ball is d is equal to vit plus 1/2 at squared. That's a polynomial. Therefore, if we check off polynomial, it should give us the better representation of this graph. Okay, first graph is done. Do not display the equation. Don't do anything with it other than to copy and paste this into your doc. Now, it's time to create your velocity time graph using the same data. Highlight velocity time, insert, chart. Again, I don't want a bar graph. I want, if I click customize, series, if I click a column chart under setup, I want to scroll down to scatter plot. That looks better. Notice my velocities are all negative, but increasing in the negative direction. Now click Customize. Now under Series, let's add a trend line. This time we want a linear trend line. That's the best one that we're going to get. And now we're going to scroll down a little bit further, and under Label, use Equation. If you look up here, you can see that the slope of this graph is negative 9.27. And we already established that the slope of this graph is the acceleration. What do we expect the acceleration to be? Negative 9.81. What is it? Negative 9.27. That's not too bad. If you get in that range, you're going to be under 10% error, which is good. Okay, if you get more than that, then that's okay, but it's not what we were looking to get, that's all.